Long ago a poor widow woman lived down near the iron forge, by Enniscorth, and she was so poor she had no clothes to put on her son. So she used to fix him in the ash hole, near the fire, and pile the warm ashes about him, and according as he grew up, she sunk the pit deeper. At last, by hook or by crook, she got a goatskin, and fastened it round his waist, and he felt quite grand, and took a walk down the street. So says she to him next morning, "Tom, you thief, you never done any good yet, and you 6 foot high, and past 19, take that rope and bring me a faggot from the wood." "Never say't twice, mother," says Tom, "here goes." When he had it gathered and tied, what should come up but a big giant, 9 foot high, and made a lick of a club at him. Well become Tom, he jumped a one side, and picked up a rampike, and the first crack he gave the big fellow, he made him kiss the clod. "If you have e'er a prayer," says Tom, "now's the time to say it, before I make fragments of you." "I have no prayers," says the giant, "but if you spare my life I'll give you that club, and as long as you keep from sin, you'll win every battle you ever fight with it." Tom made no bones about letting him off, and as soon as he got the club in his hands, he sat down on the bresna, and gave it a tap with the capeen, and says, "Faggot, I had great trouble gathering you, and run the risk of my life for you. The least you can do is to carry me home." And sure enough the wind the word was all it wanted. It went off through the wood, groaning and crackling, till it came to the widow's door. Well, when the sticks were all burned, Tom was sent off again to pick more, and this time he had to fight with a giant that had 2 heads on him. Tom had a little more trouble with him, that's all, and the prayers he said was to give Tom a fife that nobody could help dancing when he was playing it. Begories, he made the big faggot dance home, with himself sitting on it. The next giant was a beautiful boy with 3 heads on him. He had neither prayers nor catechism, no more nor the others, and so he gave Tom a bottle of green ointment that wouldn't let you be burned, nor scalded, nor wounded. "And now," says he, "there's no more of us. You may come and gather sticks here till little lunacy day in harvest, without giant or fairyman to disturb you." Well, now, Tom was prouder nor 10 paycock, and used to take a walk down street in the heel of the evening, but some o' the little boys had no more manners than if they were Dublin jackeens, and put out their tongues at Tom's club and Tom's goatskin. He didn't like that at all, and it would be mean to give one of them a clout. At last what should come through the town but a kind of a bellman, only it's a big bugle he had, and a huntsman's cap on his head, and a kind of painted shirt. So this he wasn't a bellman, and I don't know what to call him. Bugleman, maybe, proclaimed that the King of Dublin's daughter was so melancholy that she didn't give a laugh for 7 years, and that her father would grant her in marriage to whoever could make her laugh 3 times. "That's the very thing for me to try," says Tom, and so, without burning any more daylight, he kissed his mother, curled his club at the little boys, and off he set along the Yala highroad to the town of Dublin. At last Tom came to one of the city gates, and the guards laughed and cursed at him instead of letting him in. Tom stood it all for a little time, but at last one of them, out of fun, as he said, drove his bayonet half an inch or so into his side. Tom done nothing but take the fellow by the scruff o' the neck and the waistband of his corduroys, and fling him into the canal. Some ran to pull the fellow out, and others to let manners into the Bulgarian with their swords and daggers, but a tap from his club sent them headlong into the moat or down on the stones, and they were soon begging him to stay his hands. So at last one of them was glad enough to show Tom the way to the palace yard, and there was the king, and the queen, and the princess in a gallery, looking at all sorts of wrestling, and sword playing. and long dances, and mumming, all to please the princess, but not a smile came over her handsome face. Well, they all stopped when they seen the young giant, with his boy's face, and long black hair, and a short curly beard for his mother. Couldn't afford to buy razors, and his great strong arms, and bare legs, and no covering but the goatskin that reached from his waist to his knees. But an envious wizened bit of a fellow, with a red head, that wished to be married to the princess, and didn't like how she opened her eyes at Tom, came forward and asked his business very snappishly. My business, said Tom, says he, is to make the beautiful princess, God bless her, laugh 3 times. Do you see all them merry fellows and skillful swordsmen, said the other, that could eat you up with a grain of salt, and not a mother's soul of em ever got a laugh from her these 7 years? So the fellows gathered round Tom, and the bad man aggravated him till he told them he didn't care a pinch o' snuff for the whole bilin' of let em come on, 6 at a time, and try what they could do. The king, who was too far off to hear what they were saying, asked, what did the stranger want? He wants, said the red-headed fellow, to make hares of your best men. Oh, says the king, if that's the way, let one of em turn out and try his mettle. So one stood forward, with sword and pot lid, and made a cut at Tom. He struck the fellow's elbow with the club, and up over their heads flew the sword, and down went the owner of it on the gravel from a thump he got on the helmet. Another took his place, and another, and another, and then half a dozen at once, and Tom sent swords, helmets, shields, and bodies rolling over, and themselves bawling out that they were killed, and disabled and damaged, and rubbing their poor elbows and hips, and limping away. Tom contrived not to kill anyone. And the princess was so amused that she let a great sweet laugh out of her that was heard over all the yard. King of Dublin, said Tom, I've quarter of your daughter. And the king didn't know whether he was glad or sorry, and all the blood in the princess's heart run into her cheeks. So there was no more fighting that day, and Tom was invited to dine with the royal family. Next day, Redhead told Tom of a wolf, the size of a yearling heifer, that used to be serenading about the walls, and eating people and cattle, and said what a pleasure it would give the king to have it killed. With all my heart, says Tom, send a Jackeen to show me where he lives, and we'll see how he behaves to a stranger. The princess was not well pleased, for Tom looked a different person, with fine clothes and a nice green beard over his long curly hair. And besides, he'd got one laugh out of her. However, the king gave his consent, and in an hour and a half the horrible wolf was walking into the palace yard, and Tom a step or 2 behind, with his club on his shoulder, just as a shepherd would be walking after a pet lamb. The king and queen and princess were safe up in their gallery, but the officers and people of the court that wore pad rolling about the great bown, when they saw the big baste coming in, gave themselves up, and began to make for doors and gates, and the wolf licked his chops, as if he was saying, wouldn't I enjoy a breakfast off a couple of yes? The king shouted out, "Oh Tom with the goatskin, take away that terrible wolf, and you must have all my daughter." But Tom didn't mind him a bit. He pulled out his flute and began to play like vengeance, and Dickens a man or boy in the yard but began shoveling away heel and toe, and the wolf himself was obliged to get on his hind legs and dance, tap their Jack Walsh, along with the rest. A good deal of the people got inside, and shut the doors, the way the hairy fellow wouldn't pin them, but Tom kept playing, and the outsiders kept dancing and shouting, and the wolf kept dancing and roaring with the pain his legs were giving him, and all the time he had his eyes on Redhead, who was shut out along with the rest. Wherever Redhead went, the wolf followed, and kept one eye on him and the other on Tom, to see if he would give him leave to eat him. But Tom shook his head, and never stopped the tune, and Redhead never stopped dancing and bawling, and the wolf dancing and roaring one leg up and the other down, and he ready to drop out of his standing from fair tiresomeness. Illustration. When the princess seen that there was no fear of any one being killed, she was so debarted by the stew that Redhead was in, that she gave another great laugh, and well become Tom, out he cried, King of Dublin, I have two halves of your daughter. Oh, halves or alls, says the king, put away that divil of a wolf, and we'll see about it. So Tom put his flute in his pocket, and says he to the baste that was sittin' on his curabingo ready to faint, walk off to your mountain, my fine fellow, and live like a respectable baste, and if ever I find you within 7 miles of any town, I'll. He said no more, but spit in his fist, and gave a flourish of his club. It was all the poor divil of a wolf wanted. He put his tail between his legs, and took to his pumps without looking at man or mortal, and neither sun, moon, nor stars ever saw him in sight of Dublin again. At dinner every one laughed but the foxy fellow, and sure enough he was laying out how he'd settle poor Tom next day. Well, to be sure, says he, King of Dublin, you are in luck. There's the Danes moit hearing us to no end. Deuce run to Lusk wid em. And if any one can save us from em, it is this gentleman with the goatskin. There is a flail hengeon on the collar beam in hell, and neither Dane nor devil can stand before it. So, says Tom to the king, will you let me have the other half of the princess if I bring you the flail? No, no, says the princess, I'd rather never be your wife than see you in that danger. But Redhead whispered and nudged Tom about how shabby it would look to renege the adventure. So he asked which way he was to go, and Redhead directed him. Well, he travelled and travelled, till he came in sight of the walls of hell, and, bedad, before he knocked at the gates, he rubbed himself over with the greenish ointment. When he knocked, 100 little imps popped their heads out through the bars, and axed him what he wanted. I want to speak to the big divil of all, says Tom, open the gate. It wasn't long till the gate was thrown open, and the old boy received Tom with bows and scrapes, and axed his business. My business isn't much, says Tom. I only came for the loan of that flail that I see hanging on the collar beam, for the King of Dublin to give a thrashing to the Danes. Well, says the other, the Danes is much better customers to me, but since you walked so far I won't refuse. Hand that flail, says he to a young imp, and he winked the far-off eye at the same time. So, while some were barring the gates, the young devil climbed up, and took down the flail that had the handstaff and bullthene both made out of red-hot iron. The little vagabond was grinning to think how it would burn the hands o' Tom, but the dickens of burn it made on him, no more. Nor if it was a good oak sapling. Illustration. Thankee, says Tom. Now would you open the gate for a body, and I'll give you no more trouble. Oh, tramp, says old Nick, is that the way? It is easier getting inside them gates than getting out again. Take that tool from him, and give him a dose of the oil of stirrup. So one fellow put out his claws to seize on the flail, but Tom give him such a welt of it on the side of the head that he broke off one of his horns, and made him roar like a devil as he was. Well, they rushed at Tom, but he gave them, little and big, such a thrashing as they didn't forget for a while. At last, says the old thief of all, rubbing his elbow, let the fool out, and woe to whoever lets him in again, great or small. So out marched Tom, and away with him, without minding the shouting and cursing they kept up at him from the tops of the walls, and when he got home to the big bound of the palace, there never was such running and racing as to see himself and the flail. When he had his story told, he laid down the flail on the stone steps, and bid no one for their lives to touch it. If the king and queen and princess made much of him before, they made 10 times more of him now, but Redhead, the mean scruff-hound, stole over, and thought to catch hold of the flail to make an end of him. His fingers hardly touched it, when he let a roar out of him as if heaven and earth were coming together, and kept flinging his arms about and dancing, that it was pitiful to look at him. Tom ran at him as soon as he could rise, caught his hands in his own too, and rubbed them this way and that. And the burning pain left them before you could reckon one. Well, the poor fellow, between the pain that was only just gone, and the comfort he was in, had the comicalest face that you ever see. It was such a mixtherum-gatherum of laughing and crying. Everybody burst out laughing. The princess could not stop no more than the rest, and then says Tom, "Now, ma'am, if there were 50 house of you, I hope you'll give me them all." Well, the princess looked at her father, and by my word, she came over to Tom and put her 2 delicate hands into his 2 rough ones, and I wish it was myself was in his shoes that day. Tom would not bring the flail into the palace. You may be sure no other body went near it, and when the early risers were passing next morning, they found 2 long clefts in the stone, where it was after burning itself and opening downwards, nobody could tell how far. But a messenger came in at noon, and said that the Danes were so frightened when they heard of the flail coming into Dublin that they got into their ships and sailed away. Well, I suppose, before they were married, Tom got some man, like Pat Mara of Tome 9, to learn him the principles of politeness, flux science, gunnery and fortification, decimal fractions, practice, and the rule of 3 direct, the way he'd be able to keep up a conversation with the royal family. Whether he ever lost his time learning them sciences, I'm not sure, but it's as sure as fate that his mother never more saw any want till the end of her days. Illustration, man or woman, boy or girl. That reads what follows. 3 times shall fall asleep 100 years. John D. Batten drew this, August 29, 1891. Good night. Notes and references. It may be as well to give the reader some account of the enormous extent of the Celtic folktales in existence. I reckon these to extend to 2,000, though only about 250 are in print. The former number exceeds that known in France, Italy, Germany, and Russia, where collection has been most active, and is only exceeded by the MS collection of Finnish folktales at Helsingfors, said to exceed 12,000. As will be seen, this superiority of the Celts is due to the phenomenal and patriotic activity of one man, the late J.F. Campbell, of Islay, whose _popular tales and MS collections, partly described by Mr. Alfred Nutt and folklore I, 369-83, contain references to no less than 1,281 tales, many of them, of course, variants and scraps. Celtic folk tales, while more numerous, are also the oldest of the tales of modern European races, some of them _e.g. Conla, in the present selection, occurring in the oldest Irish vellums. They include 1. Fairy tales, properly so called _I. Tales or anecdotes about fairies, hobgoblins, etc., told as natural occurrences. 2. Hero tales, stories of adventure told of national or mythical heroes. 3. Folktales proper, describing marvelous adventures of otherwise unknown heroes, in which there is a defined plot and supernatural characters, speaking animals, giants, dwarfs, etc., and finally, 4. Drolls, comic anecdotes of feats of stupidity or cunning. The collection of Celtic folktales began in Ireland as early as 1825. With T. Crofton Croker's _fairy legends and traditions of the south of Ireland _. This contains some 38 anecdotes of the first class. Mentioned above, anecdotes showing the belief of the Irish peasantry in the existence of fairies, gnomes, goblins, and the like. The Grimms did Croker the honor of translating part of his book under the title of _Irish J. Elfenmarchen_. Among the novelists and tale writers of the schools of Miss Edgeworth and Lever folktales were occasionally utilized, as by Carleton in his _Trades and Stories by S. Lever in his _Legends and Stories and by G. Griffin in his _Tales of a Jury Room _. These all tell their tales in the manner of the stage. Irishman chapbooks _Royal Fairy Tales and Hibernian Tales also contained genuine folk tales and attracted Thackeray's attention in his Irish sketchbook The Irish Grimm, however, was Patrick Kennedy, a Dublin bookseller, who believed in fairies, and in 5 years 1866 to 71, printed about 100 folk and hero tales and drolls. Classes 2, 3, and 4 above, in his Legendary Fictions of the Irish. Celts _1866, Fireside Stories of Ireland _1870, and Bardic Stories of Ireland _1871, all 3 are now unfortunately out of print. He tells his stories neatly and with spirit, and retains much that is folkstumlich in his diction. He derived his materials from the English-speaking peasantry of County Wexford, who changed from Gaelic to English while storytelling was in full vigor, and therefore carried over the stories with the change of language. Lady Wilde has told many folk tales very effectively in her Ancient Legends of Ireland _1887. More recently 2 collectors have published stories gathered from peasants of the West and North who can only speak Gaelic. These are an American gentleman named Curtin Miss and Folktales of Ireland _1890, and Dr. Douglas Hyde, who has published in Beside the Fire _1891, spirited English versions of some of the stories he had published in the original Irish in his Leabhar. Sciulagíchte Dublin, 1889. Miss McClintock has a large MS collection, part of which has appeared in various periodicals, and Messrs. Larmony and D. Fitzgerald are known to have much story material in their possession. But beside these more modern collections there exist in Old and Middle Irish a large number of hero tales, Class 2, which formed the staple of the old _alums or bards. Of these tales of cattle liftings, elopements, battles, voyages, courtships, caves, lakes, feasts, sieges, and eruptions, a bard of even the 4th class had to know 750s, presumably one for each day of the year. Sir William Temple knew of a North Country gentleman of Ireland who was sent to sleep every evening with a fresh tale from his bard. The Book of Leinster an Irish vellum of the 12th century, contains a list of 189 of these hero tales, many of which are extant to this day. E. Okery gives the list in the appendix to his MS Materials of Irish History Another list of about 70 is given in the preface to the 3rd volume of the Ossianic Society's publications. Dr. Joyce published a few of the more celebrated of these in Old Celtic Romances others appeared in Atlantis see notes on Deirdre. Others in Kennedy's Bardic Stories mentioned above. Turning to Scotland, we must put aside Chambers's Popular Rhymes of Scotland _1842, which contains for the most part folktales common with those of England rather than those peculiar to the Gaelic-speaking Scots. The first name here in time as in importance is that of J. F. Campbell, of Islay. His 4 volumes, Popular Tales of the West Highlands Edinburgh, 1860-2, recently republished by the Islay Association, contains some 120 folk and hero tales, told with strict adherence to the language of the narrators, which is given with a rather too literal, English version. This careful accuracy has given an un-English air to his versions, and has prevented them attaining their due popularity. What Campbell has published represents only a tithe of what he collected. At the end of the fourth volume he gives a list of 791 tales, and collected by him or his assistants in the 2 years 1859 to 61, and in his MS collections. At Edinburgh are 2 other lists containing 400 more tales. Only a portion of these are in the Advocate's library, the rest, if extant, must be in private hands, though they are distinctly of national importance and interest. Campbell's influence has been effective of recent years in Scotland. The _Celtic magazine volumes 12 and 13, while under the editorship of Mr. McBain, contained several folk and hero tales in Gaelic, and so did the _Scottish Celtic Review _. These were from the collections of Messrs. Campbell of Tiree, Carmichael, and K. MacLeod. Recently Lord Archibald Campbell has shown laudable interest in the preservation of Gaelic folk and hero tales. Under his auspices a whole series of handsome volumes, under the general title of _Waifs and Strays of Celtic Tradition has been recently published, 4 volumes having already appeared, each accompanied by notes by Mr. Alfred Nutt, which form the most important aid to the study of Celtic folktales since Campbell himself. Those to the 2nd volume in particular. Tales collected by Rev. D. McInnes fill 100 pages, with condensed information on all aspects of the subject dealt with in the light of the most recent research on the European folktales as well as on Celtic literature. Thanks to Mr. Nutt, Scotland is just now to the fore in the collection and study of the British folktale. Wales makes a poor show beside Ireland and Scotland. Sykes is _British. Goblins _ and the tales collected by Professor Rees and _Y Simrador _ volumes 2 to 6, are mainly of our first-class fairy anecdotes. Barrow, in his _Wild Wales _ refers to a collection of fables in a journal called _The Greel while the Cambrian Quarterly Magazine for 1830 and 1831 contained a few fairy anecdotes, including a curious version of the Brewery of Eggshells, from the Welsh. In the older literature, the Iolo Mrs. published by the Welsh Mrs. Society, has a few fables and apologues, and the charming Mabinogion translated by Lady Guest, has tales that can trace back to the 12th century and are on the borderline between folk tales and hero tales. Cornwall and Man are even worse off than Wales. Hunt's _popular Romances of the West of England has nothing distinctively Celtic, and it is only by a chance Lewis chose a folktale as his specimen of Cornish in his Archaeologia Britannica 1709, see Tale of Ivan The Manx folktales published, including the most recent by Mr. Moore, in his Folklore of the Isle of Man 1891, are mainly fairy anecdotes and legends. From this survey of the field of Celtic folktales it is clear that Ireland and Scotland provide the lion's share. The interesting thing to notice is the remarkable similarity of Scotch and Irish folktales. The continuity of language and culture between these two divisions of Gaeldom has clearly brought about this identity of their folktales. As will be seen from the following notes, the tales found in Scotland can almost invariably be paralleled by those found in Ireland, and vice versa. The result is a striking confirmation of the general truth that the folklores of different countries resemble one another in proportion to their contiguity and to the continuity of language and culture between them. Another point of interest in these Celtic folktales is the light they Throw upon the relation of hero tales and folk tales, classes 2 and 3. Above. Tales told of Finn or Cuchulainn, and therefore coming under the definition of hero tales, are found elsewhere told of anonymous or unknown heroes. The question is, were the folk tales the earliest, and were they localized and applied to the heroes, or were they heroic sagas generalized and applied to an unknown, Greek, _tis_? All the evidence, in my opinion, inclines to the former view, which, as applied to Celtic folktales, is of very great literary importance. For it is becoming more and more recognized, thanks chiefly to the admirable work of Mr. Alfred Nutt, in his studies on the Holy Grail that the outburst of European romance in the 12th century was due, in large measure, to an infusion of Celtic hero tales into the literature of the Romance-speaking nations. Now the remarkable thing is, how these hero tales have lingered on in oral tradition even to the present day. See a marked case in Deirdre. We may, therefore, hope to see considerable light thrown on the most characteristic spiritual product of the Middle Ages, the literature of romance and the spirit of chivalry, from the Celtic folktales of the present day. Mr. Alfred Nutt has already shown this to be true of a special section of romance literature, that connected with the Holy Grail, and it seems probable that further study will extend the field of application of this new method of research. The Celtic folktale again has interest in retaining many traits of primitive conditions among the early inhabitants of these isles which are preserved by no other record. Take, for instance, the calm assumption of polygamy in Goldtree and Silvertree. That represents a state of feeling that is decidedly pre-Christian. The belief in an eternal soul, Life Index, recently monographed by Mr. Fraser in his Golden Bough, also finds expression in a couple of the tales, see Notes on Sea Maiden and Fair, Brown, and Trembling, and so with many other primitive ideas. Care, however, has to be taken in using folk tales as evidence for primitive practice among the nations where they are found. For the tales may have come from another race, that is, for example, probably the case with Goldtree and Silvertree, see notes. Celtic tales are of peculiar interest in this connection, as they afford one of the best fields for studying the problem of diffusion, the most pressing of the problems of the folk tales just at present, at least in my opinion. The Celts are at the furthermost end of Europe. Tales that traveled to them could go no further, and must therefore be the last links in the chain. For all these reasons, then, Celtic folk tales are of high scientific source from the Old Irish Ector Condlaheim Maet Quind Chetchathag of the Liebhar na H Weeder Book of the Dun Cow, which must have been written before 1106, when its scribe Maelmurray, servant of Mary, was murdered. The original is given by Windisch in his Irish Grammar page 120, also in the trans Kilkenny R. Keol. SOC 4 1874. A fragment occurs in a Rawlinson MS, described by Dr. W. Stokes, tripartite life page 36. I have used the translation of Professor Zimmer in his Keltisch Beitrage 2. Zeitz. F. Deutsches. Altertum BD 33, 262-4. Dr. Joyce has a somewhat florid version in his Old Celtic Romances from which I have borrowed a touch or two. I have neither extenuated nor added aught but the last sentence of the fairy maiden's last speech. Part of the original is in metrical form, so that the whole is of the Conte fable species, which I believe to be the original form of the folktale cf. Ung. Fairy tales notes, page 240, and infra page 257. Parallels Prof. Zimmer's paper contains 3 other accounts of The underscore terra repermissionese underscore in the Irish sagas, one of them being the similar adventure of Cormac, the nephew of Conla, or Conla Ruad as he should be called. The fairy apple of gold occurs in Cormac Mac. Art's visit to the Brug of Manannan, nuts underscore holy grail underscore, 193. Underscore remarks underscore Con, the 100 fighter, had the head kingship of Ireland 123 to 157 AD, according to the underscore annals of the Four Masters underscore. 105. On the day of his birth the 5 great roads from Tara to all parts of Ireland were completed, one of them from Dublin is still used. Connaught is said to have been named after him, but this is scarcely consonant with Joyce's identification with Ptolemy's. Underscore Nagnatai underscore Irish local names underscore, 75. But there can be little doubt of Con's existence as a powerful ruler in Ireland in the 2nd century. The historic existence of Conla seems also to be authenticated by the reference to him as Conley, the eldest son of Con, in the annals of Clonmacnoise. As Con was succeeded by his 3rd son, Ardenir, Conla was either slain or disappeared during his father's lifetime. Under these circumstances it is not unlikely that our legend grew up within the century after Con _ie during the latter half of the 2nd century. As regards the present form of it, Professor Zimmer, LC 261-2, places it in the 7th century. It has clearly been touched up by a Christian hand, who introduced the reference to the Day of Judgment and to the waning power of the Druids. But nothing turns upon this interpolation, so that it is likely that even the present form of the legend is pre-Christian _ie for Ireland, pre-patrician, before the 5th century. The tale of Conla is thus the earliest fairy tale of modern Europe. Besides this interest, it contains an early account of one of the most characteristic Celtic conceptions, that of the earthly paradise, the olive youth, Tir na Nog. This has impressed itself on the European imagination. In the Arthuriad it is represented by the Vale of Avalon, and as represented in the various Celtic visions of the future life, it forms one of the main sources of Dante's Divina Commedia . It is possible, too, I think, that the Homeric Hesperides and the Fortunate Isles of the ancients had a Celtic origin, as is well known. The early place names of Europe are predominantly Celtic. I have found, I believe, a reference to the conception in one of the earliest passages in the classics dealing with the Druids. Lucan, in his Pharsalia I, 450-8, addresses them in these high terms of reverence. Et vos barbaricos ritus, merem sinistrum. Sacrorum, Druidi, Positus repetistus abarmus. Solis nos deos et celi numerabobus. Aut solis nesire datum, nemora alta remotus. Incolitus Lucas. Bobus octoribus umbri. Non tacitas Arabi seds, ditis profundi. Paulita regna patunt, rigid idem spiritus artis orbalio longi, canitus esse cognita, vitae. Mors media est. The passage certainly seems to me to imply a different conception from the ordinary classical views of the life after death, the dark and dismal plains of Erebus peopled with ghosts, and the passage I have italicized would chime in well with the conception of a continuance of youth, idem spiritus in tir na nog, orbalio . One of the most pathetic, beautiful, and typical scenes in Irish legend is the return of Ossian from tir na nog, and his interview with St. Patrick. The old faith and the new, the old order of things, and that which replaced it, meet in two of the most characteristic products of the Irish imagination, for the Patrick of legend is as much a legendary figure as Oisin himself. Ossian had gone away to Tir Na nog with the fairy Niev under very much of the same circumstances. As Convla Ruad, time flies in the land of eternal youth, and when Ocean returns, after a year, as he thinks, more than 3 centuries had passed, and St. Patrick had just succeeded in introducing the new faith. The contrast of past and present has never been more vividly or beautifully represented. _source _Campbell _pop Tales of West Highlands _ no VPP 105-8. Conall Cra Buity. I have softened the 3rd episode, which is somewhat too ghastly in the original. I have translated Cra Bide Yellowclaw on the strength of Campbell's etymology, _LC page 158. Parallels Campbell 6 and 7 are 2 variants showing how widespread the story is in Gaelic Scotland. It occurs in Ireland, where it has been printed in the chapbook, Hibernian Tales as the Black Thief and the Knight of the Glen, the Black Thief being Conall, and the Knight corresponding to the King of Lochlann. It is given in Mr. Lang's _Red Fairy Book _. Here it attracted the notice of Thackeray, who gives a good abstract of it in his _Irish Sketchbook _. Ch 16. He thinks it worthy of the Arabian Nights, as wild and odd as an Eastern tale. That fantastic way of bearing testimony to the previous tale by producing an old woman who says the tale is not only true, but who was the very old woman who lived in the giant's castle. Is almost, why almost, Mr. Thackeray? A stroke of genius. The incident of the giant's breath occurs in the story of Coisha Cain. McInnes's _tales page 241, as well as the Polyphemus one, Ibid _265. One-eyed giants are frequent in Celtic folk tales, e.g. in the pursuit of Dermot and in the Mabinogi of Owen. Remarks Thackeray's reference to the Arabian Nights is especially apt, as the tale of Conall is a framework story like the 1001 Nights the 3 stories told by Conall being framed, as it were, in a 4th which is nominally the real story. This method, employed by the Indian storytellers and from them adopted by Boccaccio and thence into all European literatures, Chaucer, Queen Margaret, and c. is generally thought to be peculiar to the East and to be ultimately derived from the Jatakas or birth stories of the Buddha who tells his adventures in former incarnations. Here we find it in Celtdom, and it occurs also in The Storyteller at Fault in this collection, and the story of Coisha Cain and McInnes's are Gilshire Tales a variant of which, collected but not published by Campbell, has no less than 19 tales enclosed in a framework. The question is whether the method was adopted independently in Ireland or was due to foreign influences. Confining ourselves to Conall Yellowclaw, it seems not unlikely that the whole story is an importation. For the 2nd episode is clearly the story of Polyphemus from the Odyssey, which was known in Ireland perhaps as early as the 10th century. See Professor K. Meyer's edition of Marigod Wilex Mayak. Leardus Pref. Page 12. It also crept into the voyages of Sinbad in the Arabian Nights and as told in the Highlands it bears comparison even with the Homeric version. As Mr. Nutt remarks, Celt. Mag 12. The address of the giant to the buck is as effective as that of Polyphemus to his ram. The narrator, James Wilson, was a blind man who would naturally feel the pathos of the address. It comes from the heart of the narrator, says Campbell LC 148, it is the ornament which his mind hangs on the frame of the story. 6. Hudden and Dudden. Source from oral tradition, by the late D.W. Logie, taken down by Mr. Alfred Nutt. Underscore parallels underscore lover has a tale, little fairly, obviously derived from this folktale, and there is another very similar, Darby Darley. Another version of our tale is given under the title Donald and His Neighbors, in the chapbook underscore Hibernian Tales underscore, whence it was reprinted by Thackeray in his underscore Irish sketchbook underscore, c. 16. This has the incident of the accidental matricide, on which see Professor R. Kohler on Gonzenbach underscore Sissel. Merkin underscore, 224. No less than 4. Tales of Campbell are of this type, underscore pop, tales underscore, 218 to 31. M. Cosquinen is underscore Contes Populaires de Lorraine underscore, the storehouse of Storyology, has elaborate excursuses in this class of tales attached to his numbers X and XX. Mr. Clouston discusses it also in his underscore pop tales underscore, 229 to 88, both these writers are inclined to trace the chief incidents to India. It is to be observed that one of the earliest popular drolls in Europe, underscore Unibos underscore, a Latin poem of the 11th, and perhaps the 10th century, has the main outlines of the story, the fraudulent sale of worthless objects and the escape from the sack trick. The same story occurs in Straparola, the European earliest collection of folktales in the 16th century. On the other hand, the gold sticking to the scales is familiar to us in underscore Alibaba underscore CF underscore Cosquin underscore LC underscore I, 225 to 6, 229. Underscore remarks underscore it is indeed curious to find, as M. Cosquin points out, a cunning fellow tied in a sack getting out by crying, I won't marry the princess, in countries so far apart as Ireland, Sicily. Gonzenbach, number 71, Afghanistan, Thorburn, underscore Banu underscore, page 184, and Jamaica, underscore folklore record underscore, 353. It is indeed impossible to think these are disconnected, and for drolls of this kind a good case has been made out for the borrowing hypotheses by M. Cosquin and Mr. Clouston. Who borrowed from whom is another and more difficult question which has to be judged on its merits in each individual case. This is a type of Celtic folktales which are European in spread, have analogies with the East, and can only be said to be Celtic by adoption and by coloring. They form a distinct section of the tales told by the Celts, and must be represented in any characteristic selection. Other examples are 11, 15, XX, and perhaps 22. 7. Shepherd of Midvi. Underscore source underscore preface to the edition of The Physicians of Midvi. Their prescription book, from the Red Book of Her Jest, published by the Welsh MS Society in 1861. The legend is not given in the Red Book, but from oral tradition by Mr. W. Rees, page 21. As this is the first of the Welsh tales in this book, it may be as well to give the reader such guidance as I can afford him on the intricacies of Welsh pronunciation, especially with regard to the mysterious underscore W underscore S and underscore Y underscore S of Welsh orthography. For underscore W underscore substitute double underscore O underscore, as in underscore full underscore and for underscore Y underscore, the short underscore U underscore and B underscore U underscore T, and as near approach to Cymric speech will be reached as is possible for the Outlander. It may be added that double underscore D underscore equals underscore TH underscore, and double underscore L underscore is something like underscore FL underscore, as Shakespeare knew in calling his Welsh soldier Llewellyn. Llewellyn. Thus, Medagon Midvi would be underscore onlys underscore methagon. Muthvi. Underscore parallels underscore other versions of the legend of the Vanpool are given in underscore Cambro Britain underscore 315 W. Sykes underscore British Goblins underscore page 40. Mr. Sidney Hartland has discussed these and others in a set of papers. Contributed to the first volume of the Archaeological Review now. Incorporated into folklore the substance of which is now given in his Science of Fairy Tales 274 to 332. See also the references given. In Review Celtic 4, 187 and 268. Mr. Hartland gives therein ecumenical collection of parallels to the several incidents that go to make up our story. 1. The bride capture of the Swan Maiden. 2. The recognition of the bride. 3. The taboo against causeless blows. 4. Doomed to be broken. And 5. Disappearance of the Swan Maiden, with 6. Her return as guardian spirit to her descendants. In each case Mr. Hartland gives what he considers to be the most primitive form of the incident. With reference to our present tale, he comes to the conclusion, if I understand him aright, that the Lake Maiden was once regarded as a local divinity. The physicians of Midvi were historic personages, renowned for their medical skill for some 6 centuries. Till the race died out with John Jones, FL 1743. To explain their skill and uncanny knowledge of herbs, the folk traced them to a supernatural ancestress, who taught them their craft in a place still called Pantwy Doctor's Dingle. Their medical knowledge did not require any such remarkable origin, as Mr. Hartland has shown. In a paper on Welsh folk medicine, contributed to Y Simrador Volume 12. On the other hand, the Swan Maiden type of story is widespread through the Old World. Mr. Morris's Land East of the Moon and West of the Sun, in the Earthly Paradise is taken from the Norse version. Parallels are accumulated by the Grimms, 2, 432. Kohler on Gonzenbach, 2, 20, or Blade, 149, Stokes's Indian Fairy Tales 243, 276, and Messrs. Jones and Kupf, Magyar Folktales 362 to 5. It remains to be proved that one of these versions did not travel to Wales and become there localized. We shall see other instances of such localization or specialization of general legends. Source notes and queries 4 December 21, 1861, to which it was communicated by Cuthbert Bede, the author of Verdant Green who collected it in Cantyre. Parallels Miss Dempster gives the same story in her Sutherland collection, number 7. Referred to by Campbell in his Gaelic list, at end of volume 4. Mrs. John Fade, I am informed by a friend, knows the Gaelic version, as told by her nurse in her youth. Chambers is strange. Visitor, Pop Rhymes of Scotland 64, of which I gave an anglicized version in my English Fairy Tales number 32, is clearly a variant. Remarks the MacDonald of Saddell Castle was a very great man. Indeed. Once, when dining with the Lord Lieutenant, an apology was made to him for placing him so far away from the head of the table. Where the MacDonald sits, was the proud response, there is the head of the table. 9. Deirdre. Source Celtic Magazine 13, page 69, seek I have abridged somewhat, made the sons of Fergus all faithful instead of 2 traitors, and omitted an incident in the house of the wild men called Here Strangers. The original Gaelic was given in the Transactions of the Inverness Gaelic Society for 1887, page 241, seek by Mr. Carmichael. I have inserted Deirdre's Lament from the Book of Leinster Parallels This is one of the 3 most sorrowful tales of Erin. The other 2, underscore children of Lyre underscore and underscore children of Tureen underscore, are given in Dr. Joyce's underscore Old Celtic Romances underscore, and is a specimen of the old heroic sagas of elopement, a list of which is given in the underscore book of Leinster underscore. The outcast child is a frequent episode in folk and hero tales. An instance occurs in my underscore English fairy tales underscore, number 35. And Professor Kohler gives many others in underscore Archive F. Slav. Philology underscore. 288. Mr. Nutt adds 10th century Celtic parallels in underscore folklore underscore. Volume 2. The wooing of hero by heroine is a characteristic Celtic touch. See Conla here, and other examples given by Mr. Nutt in his notes to McInnes's underscore tales underscore. The trees growing from the lovers' graves occurs in the English ballad of underscore Lord Lovell underscore and has been studied in underscore Melusine underscore. Underscore remarks underscore the story of Deirdre is a remarkable instance of the tenacity of oral tradition among the Celts. It has been preserved in no less than 5 versions, or 6, including Macpherson's Dart Hula, ranging from the 12th to the 19th century. The earliest is in the 12th century, underscore Book of Leinster underscore, to be dated about 1140, edited in facsimile under the auspices of the Royal Irish Academy, I. 147, underscore Seek underscore. Then comes a 15th century version, edited and translated by Dr. Stokes in Windish's underscore Irish J text underscore 2. 109, underscore Seek underscore, Death of the Sons of Uisnech. Keating in his underscore History of Ireland underscore gave another version in the 17th century. The Dublin Gaelic Society published an 18th century version in their underscore Transactions underscore for 1808. And lastly we have the version before us, collected only a few years ago, yet agreeing in all essential details with the version of the underscore Book of Leinster underscore. Such a record is unique in the history of oral tradition, outside Ireland, where, however, it is quite a customary experience in the study of the Finn saga. It is now recognized that Macpherson had, or could have, had ample material for his underscore Réchauffé underscore of the Finn or Fingal saga. His Dart Hula is a similar cobbling of our present story. I leave to Celtic specialists the task of settling the exact relations of these various texts. I content myself with pointing out the fact that in these latter days of a seemingly prosaic century in these British Isles there has been collected from the lips of the folk a heroic story like this of Deirdre, full of romantic incidents, told with tender feeling and considerable literary skill. No other country in Europe, except perhaps Russia, could provide a parallel to this living on of romance among the common folk. Surely it is a bounden duty of those who are in a position to put on record any such utterances of the folk imagination of the Celts before it is too late. Underscore source underscore I have combined the Irish version given by Dr. Hyde in his underscore Liebhar Skull underscore, and translated by him from Mr. Yeats's underscore Irish folk and fairy tales underscore, and the Scotch version given in Gaelic and English by Campbell, number 8. Underscore parallels underscore 2 English versions are given in my underscoring fairy tales underscore number 4, The Old Woman and Her Pig, and 34, The Cat and the Mouse, where see notes for other variants in these Isles. M. Cosquin, in his notes to number 34, of his underscore Conte de Lorraine underscore, t. 2, pages 35 to 41, has drawn attention to an astonishing number of parallels scattered through all Europe and the East, underscore cf underscore, 2. Crane, underscore Ital, Poptales underscore, notes. 372 to 5, one of the earliest allusions to the jingle is an underscore Don Quixote underscore, pt1, c16, yaci. Como suele decirse _el gato el rato a la cuerda el palo daba el arriero a Sancho, Sancho a la moza a el ventero a la moza. As I have pointed out, it is used to this day by Bengali women at the end of each folktale they recite, lb day. Folktales of Bengal pref. Remarks two ingenious suggestions have been made as to the origin of this curious jingle, both connecting it with religious ceremonies. 1. Something very similar occurs in Chaldaic at the end of the Jewish Haggadah or domestic ritual for the Passover night. It has, however, been shown that this does not occur in early mizas or editions, and was only added at the end to amuse the children after the service, and was therefore only a translation or adaptation of a current German form of the jingle. 2. M. Bassett, in the Revue de Traditions Populaires 1890, TV, page 549, has suggested that it is a survival of the old Greek custom at the sacrifice of the Buphonia for the priest to contend that he had not slain the sacred beast. The axe declares that the handle did it, the handle transfers the guilt further, and so on. This is ingenious, but fails to give any reasonable account of the diffusion of the jingle in countries which have had no historic connection with classical Greece. 11. Gold Tree and Silver Tree, 1. Source Celtic Magazine 13. 213-8, Gaelic and English from Mr. Kenneth MacLeod. Parallels Mr. MacLeod heard another version in which Goldtree, anonymous in this variant, is bewitched to kill her father's horse, dog, and cock. Abroad it is the Grimms Schneewittchen number 53, 4. The continental variants of which see Kohler on Gonzenbach Sissel. Merkin numbers 2-4, Grimm's notes on 53, and Crane Ital Pop Tales 331, no other version is known in the British Isles. Footnote 1, since the first issue Mr. Nutt has made a remarkable discovery with reference to this tale, which connects it with Marie de France's _Lie d'Eliduc circa 1200 and renders it probable that the tale is originally Celtic. Mr. Nutt thinks that the German version may be derived from England. Remarks it is unlikely, I should say impossible, that this tale, with the incident of the dormant heroine, should have arisen independently in the Highlands. It is most likely an importation from abroad. Yet in it occurs a most primitive incident, the bigamous household of the hero. This is glossed over in Mr. MacLeod's other variant. On the survival method of investigation, this would possibly be used as evidence for polygamy in the Highlands. Yet if, as is probable, the story came from abroad, this trait may have come with it, and only implies polygamy in the original home of the tale. Source S lovers stories and legends of the Irish peasantry remarks this is a moral apologue on the benefits of keeping your word. Yet it is told with such humor and vigor, that the moral glides insensibly into the heart. Source the Mabinogi of Kilwcha Nolwen from the translation of Lady Guest, abridged. Parallels Prof Rees Hibbert Lectures page 486, considers that our tale is paralleled by Cuchulain's Wooing of Emer, a translation of which by Professor K. Meyer appeared in the Archaeological Review Volume 1. I fail to see much analogy. On the other hand, in his Arthurian Legend page 41, he rightly compares the tasks set by Isbithodon to those set to Jason. They are indeed of the familiar type of the bride wager, on which see Grimhunt, I. 399. The incident of The three animals, old, older, and oldest, has a remarkable resemblance to the underscore Tetrajotica underscore, edition Fossbull, number 37, Transl. Rhys Davids, page 310 underscore seek underscore, in which the partridge, monkey, and elephant dispute as to their relative age, and the partridge turns out to have voided the seed of the banyan tree under which they were sheltered, whereas the elephant only knew it when a mere bush, and the monkey had nibbled the topmost shoots. This apologue got to England at the end of the 12th century as the 69th fable, Wolf, Fox, and Dove, of a rhymed prose collection of Fox Fables, Michel Shualam of an Oxford Jew, Berechiah Nacton, known in the records as Benedict Lupuncture, see my fables of Aesop page 170. Similar incidents occur in Jack and his Snuffbox in my English fairy tales and in Dr. Hyde's Well of Diary in Dowen. The skilled companions of Coleridge are common in European folktales. CF Cosquin, 123-5, and especially among the Celts, see Mr. Nutt's note in McInnes's tales 445-8, among whom they occur very early, but not so early as Lynceus and the other skilled comrades of the Argonauts. Remarks the hunting of the boar trwyth can be traced back in Welsh tradition at least as early as the 9th century. For it is referred to in the following passage of Nennius's Historia Brittonum ed. Stevenson, page 60, est aliad miraculum in region quae dicitur belt. Bilf, company Brecon, est ibi cumulus lapidum et unis lapis. Superpositus super congestum cum vestigia canis in eo. Quando venatus. Est porcum troint, var. Lec, troit, impressit cabal, ca erat canis. Arthuri militis, vestigium in lapide Arthur postea congregavit. Congestum lapidum sub lapide in quo erat vestigium canis suae et. Vocator Carn Cabal. Curiously enough, there is still a mountain called Carn Cabal in the district of Bilf, south of Rhaeadr Gwy in Breconshire. Still more curiously, a friend of Lady Guest's found on this a cairn with a stone 2 feet long by 1 foot wide in which there was an indentation 4 inches, x 3 inches, x 2 inches, which could easily have been mistaken for a pawprint of a dog, as may be seen from the engraving given of it on opposite page, Mabinogion edition 1874, p. 269. The stone and the legend are thus at least 1,000 years old. There stands the stone to tell if I lie. According to Professor Rhys Hibbert Lecht 486-97, the whole story is a mythological one. Coleridge's mother being the dawn, the clover blossoms that grow under Olwen's feet being comparable to the roses that sprang up where Aphrodite had trod, and Aspidodon being the incarnation of the sacred hawthorn. Mabon, again, LC pages 21, 28-9, is the Apollo. Mabonus discovered in Latin inscriptions at Einstable in Cumberland. And elsewhere, Hubner, Corp, Insk. Latbrit, numbers 218, 332, 1345. Granting all this, there is nothing to show any mythological significance in the tale, though there may have been in the names of the dramatis personae . I observe from the proceedings of the recent Estevod that the bardic name of Mr. W. Abraham, MP, is Mabon. It scarcely follows that Mr. Abraham is in receipt of divine honors nowadays. Illustration. Source curtain myths, and c. of Ireland 78 seek parallels the latter half resembles the second part of the Sea Maiden, number 17, which see. The earlier portion is a Cinderella tale, on which see the late Mr. Ralston's article in _19th Century November, 1879, and Mr. Lang's treatment in his Perrault. Miss. Rolf Cox is about to publish for the Folklore Society a whole volume of variants of the Cinderella group of stories, which are remarkably well represented in these isles, nearly a dozen different versions being known in England, Ireland, and Scotland. _source _Kennedy _fireside stories of Ireland _74 to 80, Shannon O'Madhan and his master _parallels _ it occurs also in Campbell, No XLV, Macra Ruscake. It is a European droll, the wide occurrence of which the loss of temper bet I should call it is bibliographized by M. Cosquin _L. C _2, 50, CF notes on number 6. _source I have paraphrased the well-known poem of Honorable W.R. Spencer, Beth Gellert, or The Grave of the Greyhound, first printed privately as a broadsheet in 1800 when it was composed, August 11, 1800, Dalamallanlin is the colophon. It was published in Spencer's _poems _1811, pages 78 to 86. These dates, it will be seen, are of importance. Spencer states in a note, the story of this ballad is traditionary in a village at the foot of Snowdon where Llewellyn the Great had a house. The greyhound named Gellert was given him by his father-in-law, King John, in the year 1205, and the place to this day is called Beth Gellert, or the Grave of Gellert. As a matter of fact, no trace of the tradition in connection with Bed Gellert can be found before Spencer's time. It is not mentioned in Leland's _itinerary edition Hearn, v. page 37, Beth Kellerth, in Pennant's _tour 1770. 2, 176, or in Bingley's _tour in Wales _1800. Borrow in his _wild. Wales page 146, gives the legend, but does not profess to derive it from local tradition. Parallels the only parallel in Celtdom is that noticed by Croker in his third volume, The Legend of Partholin who killed his wife's greyhound from jealousy. This is found sculptured in stone at A.P. Brune, Company Limerick. As is well known, and has been elaborately discussed by Mr. Baring Gould, Curious Myths of the Middle Ages p. 134 seek and Mr. W. A. Clouston, Popular Tales and Fictions 2, 166 seek The Story of the Man Who Rashly Slew the Dog. Ichneumon, Weasel, and C. That had saved his babe from death, is one of those which have spread from east to west. It is indeed, as Mr. Clouston points out, still current in India, the land of its birth. There is little doubt that it is originally Buddhistic. The late Prof. S. Beale gave the earliest known version from the Chinese translation of the Vinaya Pitaka in the Academy of November 4, 1882. The conception of an animal sacrificing itself for the sake of others is peculiarly Buddhistic. The Hare and the Moon is an apotheosis of such a piece of self-sacrifice on the part of Buddha, Sasajataka. There are two forms that have reached the West, the first being that of an animal saving men at the cost of its own life. I pointed out an early instance of this quoted by a rabbi of the 2nd century, in my fables of Aesop I, 105. This concludes with a strangely close parallel to Gellert. They raised a cairn over his grave, and the place is still called the Dog's Grave. The Culex attributed to Virgil seems to be another variant of this. The second form of the legend is always told as a moral apologue against precipitate action, and originally occurred in the fables of Bidpai in its 101 forms, all founded on Buddhistic originals, CF Benfei. Underscore Panskatantra underscore, Einleitung, number 201.2, thence, according to Ben Fay. It was inserted in the underscore book of Sindbad underscore, another collection of Oriental apologues framed on what may be called the Mrs. Potiphar formula. This came to Europe with the Crusades, and is known in its Western versions as the underscore Seven Sages of Rome underscore. The Gellert story occurs in all the Oriental and Occidental versions, underscore e.g. underscore, it is the first master story in Wynkyn de Ward's edition G. L. Gaume, for the Beyond Society. From the underscore Seven Sages underscore it was taken into the particular branch of the underscore Gesta Romanorum underscore current in England and known as the English underscore Gesta underscore, where it occurs as C32, story of Folliculus. We have thus traced it to England whence it passed to Wales, where I have discovered it as the second apologue of the Fables of Catg the Wise, in the Iolo MS published by the Welsh MS Society, page 561, The Man Who Killed His Greyhound. These fables, Mr. Nutt informs me, are a pseudonymous production probably of the 16th century. This concludes the literary route of the Legend of Gellert from India to Wales, Buddhistic underscore Vinaya. Pitaka underscore fables of Bidpai underscore, Oriental underscore Sindbad underscore, Occidental underscore 7. Sages of Rome underscore, English, Latin, underscore Gesta Romanorum underscore, Welsh underscore fables of Catg underscore. Footnote 2, it occurs in the same chapter as the story of La Parrot, which has been traced, after Ben Fay, by Professor M. Muller in his Migration of Fables. Underscore cell essays underscore, I, 500-74, exactly the same history applies to Gellert. Illustration. Underscore remarks underscore we have still to connect the legend with Llewellyn and with Bed Gellert. But first it may be desirable to point out why it is necessary to assume that the legend is a legend and not a fact. The saving of an infant's life by a dog, and the mistaken slaughter of the dog, are not such an improbable combination as to make it impossible that the same event occurred in many places. But what is impossible, in my opinion, is that such an event should have independently been used in different places as the typical instance of, and warning against, rash action. That the Gellert legend, before it was localized, was used as a moral apologue in Wales is shown by the fact that it occurs among the fables of Catg, which are all of that character. It was also utilized as a proverb, underscore year wyn edavaru. Sime de rgwr a lad.ei vilgi underscore, I repent as much as the man who slew his greyhound. The fable indeed, from this point of view, seems greatly to have attracted the Welsh mind, perhaps as of a special value to a proverbially impetuous temperament. Croker, underscore Fairy Legends of Ireland underscore, volume 3, page 165, points out several places where the legend seems to have been localized in place names. Two places, called Gwalwy Vilest, Greyhound's Couch, in Carmarthen and Glamorganshire, Lech Asp, Dog Stone, in Cardigan, and another place named in Welsh Spring of the Greyhound's Stone. Mr. Baring Gould mentions that the legend is told of an ordinary tombstone, with a knight and a greyhound, in Abergavenny Church, while the fable of Catg is told of a man in Abergarwyn. So widespread and well-known was the legend that it was in Richard III time adopted as the national crest. In the Warwick Roll, at the Herald's Office, after giving separate crests for England, Scotland, and Ireland, that for Wales is given as figured in the margin, and blazoned on a coronet in a cradle or, a greyhound argent for Wales. C.J.R. Planch, underscore 12 designs for the costume of Shakespeare's Richard III, underscore, 1830, frontispiece. If this roll is authentic, the popularity of the legend is thrown back into the 15th century. It Still remains to explain how and when this general legend of rash action was localized and specialized at Bed Gellert. I believe I have discovered this. There certainly was a local legend about a dog named Gellert at that place. E. Jones, in the first edition of his musical Relics of the Welsh Bards, 1784 page 40, gives the following *Lyn_ or epigram. Cladwood Salart Selfid, Imliniad. Imlano Ifyunid. Parajuio Iwgynydd. Pariar Dydd year Helii Hydd. Which he Englishes thus. The remains of famed Salart, so faithful and good. The bounds of the cantered conceal. Whenever the doe or the stag he pursued, his master was sure of a meal. No reference was made in the first edition to the Gellert legend, but in the second edition of 1794, page 75, a note was added telling the legend. There is a general tradition in North Wales that a wolf had entered the house of Prince Llewellyn soon after the prince returned home, and, going into the nursery, he met his dog _Killheart_, all bloody and wagging his tail at him. Prince Llewellyn, on entering the room, found the cradle where his child lay overturned, and the floor flowing with blood. Imagining that the greyhound had killed the child, he immediately drew his sword and stabbed it, then, turning up the cradle, found under it the child alive, and the wolf dead. This so grieved the prince, that he erected a tomb over his faithful dog's grave, where afterwards the parish church was built and goes by that name _Bed Silhart_, or the grave of Killheart, in _Carnarvonshire_. From this incident is elicited a very common Welsh proverb, that given above, which occurs also in the fables of Catg. It will be observed that it is quite indefinite. Prince Llewellyn of Jorworth married Joan, natural, daughter of King John, by Agatha_, daughter of Robert Ferrers Earl of Derby, and the dog was a present to the prince from his father-in-law about the year 1205. It was clearly from this note that the Honourable Mr. Spencer got his account. Oral tradition does not indulge in dates _Anno Domini_. The application of the general legend of the man who slew his greyhound to the dog Salart was due to the learning of E. Jones, author of the musical Relics _. I am convinced of this, for by a lucky chance I am enabled to give the real legend about Salart, which is thus given in Carlyle's _topographical Dictionary of Wales _SV, Bed Salart, published in 1811, the date of publication of Mr. Spencer's _poems _. Its name, according to tradition, implies the grave of Salart a greyhound which belonged to Llywelyn, the last prince of Wales, and a large rock is still pointed out as the monument of this celebrated dog, being on the spot where it was found dead, together with the stag which it had pursued from Carnarvon, which is 13 miles distant. The cairn was thus a monument of a record run of a greyhound. The Lyn_ quoted by Jones is suitable enough for this, while quite inadequate to record the later legendary exploits of Gellert. Jones found an Lyn_ devoted to an exploit of a dog named Salart, and chose to interpret it in his second edition, 1794, as the exploit of a greyhound with which all the world, in Wales, were acquainted. Mr. Spencer took the legend from Jones. The reference to the date 1205 proves that enshrined it in his somewhat banal verses, which were lucky enough to be copied into several reading books, and thus became known to all English-speaking folk. It remains only to explain why Jones connected the legend with Llewellyn. Llewellyn had local connection with Bed Gellert, which was the seat of an Augustinian abbey, one of the oldest in Wales. An Inspeximus of Edward I, given in Dugdale _Monast. Angle _, edition pr. 2, 100a, quotes as the earliest charter of the Abbey Cartam. Llewellyn Magni. The name of the abbey was Beth Kellerth. The name is thus given by Leland_LC_, and as late as 1794 an engraving at the British Museum is entitled Beth Kellert, while Carlyle gives it as Beth Celert. The place was thus named after the abbey, not after the cairn or rock. This is confirmed by the fact of which Professor Rees had informed me, that the collocation of letters _RT_ is un-Welsh. Under these circumstances it is not impossible, I think, that the earlier legends of the marvelous run of Celart from Carnarvon was due to the etymologizing fancy of some English-speaking Welshmen who interpreted the name as Kilhart, so that the simpler legend would be only a folk etymology. But whether Kellerth, Kellert, Celart, Gellert or Gellert ever existed and ran a hart from Carnarvon to Bed Gellert or no, there can be little doubt after the preceding that he was not the original hero of the fable of the man that slew his greyhound, which came to Wales from Buddhistic India through channels which are perfectly traceable. It was Edward Jones who first raised him to that proud position, and William Spencer who securely installed him there, probably for all time. The legend is now firmly established at Bed Gellert. There is said to be an ancient air, Bed Gellert, as sung by the ancient Britons. It is given in a pamphlet published at Carnarvon in the 50s, entitled _Gellert's Grave, or Llewellyn's Rashness, a ballad by the Honourable W. R. Spencer, to which is added that ancient Welsh air, Bed Gellert, as sung by the ancient Britons _. The air is from R. Roberts' collection of Welsh airs, but what connection it has with the legend I have been unable to ascertain. This is probably another case of adapting one tradition to another. It is almost impossible to distinguish Paleozoic and Cainozoic strata in oral tradition. According to Murray's _guide to N. Wales _, page 125, the only authority for the cairn now shown is that of the landlord of the Goat Inn, who felt compelled by the cravings of tourists to invent a grave. Some old men at Bed Gellert, Professor Rees informs me, are ready to testify that they saw the cairn laid. They might almost have been present at the birth of the legend, which, if my affiliation of it is correct, is not yet quite 100 years old. 22. Story of Ivan. Source Lewid, Archaeologia Britannia, 1707 The first comparative Celtic grammar and the finest piece of work in comparative philology hitherto done in England, contains this tale as a specimen of Cornish, then still spoken in Cornwall. I have used the English version, contained in Blackwood's Magazine as long ago as May, 1818. I have taken the third counsel from the Irish version, as the original is not suited Virginibus Purisque though harmless enough in itself. Parallels Lover has a tale, the three advices It occurs also in Modern Cornwall AP Hunt Drolls of West of England 344, the Tinner of Kyamore. Barrow Wild Wales 41, has a reference which seems to imply that the story had crystallized into a Welsh proverb. Curiously enough, it forms the chief episode of the so-called Irish Odyssey Marigod Wilex Mace Leardus Wandering of Ulysses. Mlertz. It was derived, in all probability, from the Gesta. Romanorum c. 103, where two of the three pieces of advice are avoid a byway, beware of a house where the housewife is younger than her husband. It is likely enough that this chapter, like others of the Gesta came from the East, for it is found in some versions of the 40 Viziers, and in the Turkish Tales see Osterley's Parallels. And Gesta edition Swan and Hooper, note 9. Underscore source underscore from the late D.W. Logie, written down by Mr. Alfred Nutt. Underscore parallels underscore Dr. Hyde's Tego Kane and the Corpse, and Kennedy's Koth Morrissey, underscore legend fict underscore 158, are practically the same. Underscore remarks underscore no collection of Celtic folktales would be representative. That did not contain some specimen of the gruesome. The most effective ghoul story in existence is Lover's Brown Man. 24, Battle of Birds. Underscore source underscore Campbell underscore pop tales, W. Highlands underscore, number 2, with touches from the 7th variant and others, including the casket and key finish, from Curtin's Son of the King of Erin, underscore myths, and c. 32. Seek underscore. I have also added a specimen of the humorous end pieces added by Gaelic storytellers. On these tags see an interesting note in McDougall's underscore tales underscore, note on page 112. I have found some difficulty in dealing with Campbell's excessive use of the second-person singular. If thou thouest him some 2 or 3 times, 'tis well, but beyond that it is wearisome. Practically, I have reserved underscore thou underscore for the speech of giants, who may be supposed to be somewhat old-fashioned. I fear, however, I have not been quite consistent, though the underscore use underscore addressed to the applepips are grammatically correct as applied to the pair of lovers. Underscore parallels underscore besides the 8 versions given or abstracted by Campbell and Mr. Curtin, there is Carleton's 3 tasks, Dr. Hyde's Son of Branduff, M.S., there is the first tale of McInnes, where c. Mr. Nutt's elaborate notes, 431-43, 2 in the underscore Celtic magazine underscore. Volume 12, Grey Norris from Warland, underscore Folklore Journ underscore I, 316. And Mr. Lang's Murrayshire tale, Nicked Not Nothing, C underscoring Fairy. Tales underscore, number 7, no less than 16 variants found among the Celts. It must have occurred early among them. Mr. Nutt found the Featherthatch incident in the underscore Agalum na Senioribe underscore, Discourse of Elders, which is at least as old as the 15th century. Yet the story is to be found throughout the Indo-European world, as is shown by Professor Kohler's elaborate list of parallels attached to Mr. Lang's variant in underscore review Celtique underscore, 374, and Mr. Lang, in his underscore custom and myth underscore, a far-traveled tale, has given a number of parallels from savage sources. And strangest of all, the story is practically the same as the classical myth of Jason and Medea. Underscore remarks underscore Mr. Nutt, in his discussion of the tale, McInnes. Underscore tales underscore, 441, makes the interesting suggestion that the obstacles to pursuit, the forest, the mountain, and the river, exactly represent the boundary of the old Teutonic Hades, so that the story was originally one of the descent to hell. Altogether it seems likely that it is one of the oldest folktales in existence, and belonged to the story store of the original Aryans, whoever they were, was passed by them with their language on to the Hellenes and perhaps to the Indians, was developed in its modern form in Scandinavia, where its best representative, the Mastermaid of Asbjornsen, is still found, was passed by them to the Celts and possibly was transmitted by these latter to other parts of Europe, perhaps by early Irish monks, c. Notes on Sea Maiden. The spread in the Buddhistic world, and thence to the South Seas and Madagascar, would be secondary from India. I hope to have another occasion for dealing with this most interesting of all folktales in the detail it deserves. Underscore source underscore from the underscore Cambrian Quarterly Magazine, 1830 underscore, Volume 2, p. 86, it is stated to be literally translated from the Welsh. Underscore parallels underscore another variant from Glamorganshire is given in underscore y. Simrador underscore, 6, 209. Croker has the story under the title I have Given the Welsh one in his _fairy legends _41. Mr. Hartland, in his _science of fairy tales _113-6, gives the European parallels. 26. Lad with the goatskin. Source Kennedy, legendary fictions pages 23-31. The Adventures of Gilla na Crechen Gore. Parallels the lad with the skin coverings is a popular Celtic figure cf MacDougall's third tale, McInnes's second, and a reference in Campbell 3, 147. According to Mr. Nutt, Holy Grail 134, he is the original of Parzival. But the adventures in these tales are not the cure by laughing incident which forms the center of our tale, and is Indo-European in extent, cf references in English fairy tales notes to number 27. The smith who made hell too hot for him is Sisyphus, says Mr. Lang, in Rod to Grimm, p. 13. In Ireland he is Billy Dawson, Carlton, _3 wishes in the Finn saga, Conan Harry's Hell, as readers of Waverley may remember Claw for Claw, and Devil take the shortest nails, as Conan said to the devil, cf Campbell, the Fiends 73, and notes, 283. Red-haired men in Ireland and elsewhere are always rogues, see Mr. Nutt's references, McInnes's tales 477, to which add the case in Loch Nee, Yeats, Irish folk tales page 210. Folk and fairy tales from many lands. English folk and fairy tales. Joseph Jacobs. Illustrated by John D. Batten More English folk and fairy tales. Joseph Jacobs. Illustrated by John D. Batten Celtic folk and fairy tales. Joseph Jacobs. Illustrated by John D. Batten European folk and fairy tales. Joseph Jacobs. Illustrated by John D. Batten Indian folk and fairy tales. Joseph Jacobs. Illustrated by John D. Batten The Book of Wonder Voyages. Joseph Jacobs. Illustrated by John D. Batten Johnny Cake. Joseph Jacobs. Illustrated by Emma L. Brock Chimney Corner Fairy Tales. Veronica S. Hutchinson, editor. Candlelight Stories. Veronica S. Hutchinson, editor. Chimney Corner Stories. Veronica S. Hutchinson, editor. Fireside Stories. Veronica S. Hutchinson, editor. *************** End of the Project Gutenberg ebook Celtic Folk and Fairy Tales. Updated editions will replace the previous one, the old editions will be renamed. Creating the works from print editions not protected by U.S. copyright law means that no one owns a United States copyright in these works. So the Foundation, and you, can copy and distribute it in the United States without permission and without paying copyright royalties. Special rules, set forth in the General Terms of Use Part of this license, apply to copying and distributing Project Gutenberg electronic works to protect the Project Gutenberg concept and trademark. Project Gutenberg is a registered trademark and may not be used if you charge for an ebook, except by following the terms of the trademark license, including paying royalties for use of the Project Gutenberg trademark. If you do not charge anything for copies of this ebook, complying with the trademark license is very easy. You may use this ebook for nearly any purpose such as creation of derivative works, reports, performances and research. Project Gutenberg ebooks may be modified and printed and given away. You may Do practically anything in the United States with ebooks not protected by U.S. copyright law. Redistribution is subject to the trademark license, especially commercial redistribution. Start, full license. The full Project Gutenberg license. Please read this before you distribute or use this work. To protect the Project Gutenberg mission of promoting the free distribution of electronic works, by using or distributing this work, or any other work associated in any way with the phrase Project Gutenberg, you agree to comply with all the terms of the full Project Gutenberg license available with this file or online at www.gutenberg.org/license. Section 1. General Terms of Use and Redistributing Project Gutenberg. Electronic Works. 1.a. By reading or using any part of this Project Gutenberg electronic work, you indicate that you have read, understand, agree to, and accept all the terms of this license and intellectual property, trademark/copyright, agreement. If you do not agree to abide by all the terms of this agreement, you must cease using and return or destroy all copies of Project Gutenberg electronic works in your possession. If you paid a fee for obtaining a copy of or access to a Project Gutenberg electronic work and you do not agree to be bound by the terms of this agreement, you may obtain a refund from the person or entity to whom you paid the fee as set forth in paragraph 1.e.8. 1.b. Project Gutenberg is a registered trademark. It may only be used on or associated in any way with an electronic work by people who agree to be bound by the terms of this agreement. There are a few things that you can do with most Project Gutenberg electronic works, even without complying with the full terms of this agreement. See paragraph 1.c below. There are a lot of things you can do with Project Gutenberg electronic works if you follow the terms of this agreement and help preserve free future access to Project Gutenberg electronic works. See paragraph 1.e below. 1.c. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the Foundation or PGLAF, owns a compilation copyright in the collection of Project Gutenberg electronic works. Nearly all the individual works in the collection are in the public domain in the United States. If an individual work is unprotected by copyright law in the United States and you are located in the United States, we do not claim a right to prevent you from copying, distributing, performing, displaying or creating derivative works based on the work as long as all references to Project Gutenberg are removed. Of course, we hope that you will support the Project Gutenberg mission of promoting free access to electronic works by freely sharing Project Gutenberg works in compliance with the terms of this agreement for keeping the Project Gutenberg name associated with the work. You can easily comply with the terms of this agreement by keeping this work in the same format with its attached full Project Gutenberg license when you share it without charge with others. 1.d. The copyright laws of the place where you are located also govern what you can do with this work. Copyright laws in most countries are in a constant state of change. If you are outside the United States, check the laws of your country in addition to the terms of this agreement before downloading, copying, displaying, performing, distributing or creating derivative works based on this work or any other Project Gutenberg work. The Foundation makes no representations concerning the copyright status of any work in any country other than the United States. 1.e. Unless you have removed all references to Project Gutenberg. 1.e.1. The following sentence, with active links to, or other immediate access to, the full Project Gutenberg license must appear prominently whenever any copy of a Project Gutenberg work, any work on which the phrase Project Gutenberg appears, or with which the phrase Project Gutenberg is associated, is accessed, displayed, performed, viewed, copied, or distributed. This ebook is for the use of anyone anywhere in the United States and most other parts of the world at no cost and with almost no restrictions whatsoever. You may copy it, give it away, or reuse it under the terms of the Project Gutenberg license included with this ebook or online at www.gutenberg.org. If you are not located in the United States, you will have to check the laws of the country where you are located before using this ebook. 1.2. If an individual Project Gutenberg electronic work is derived from texts not protected by U.S. copyright law, does not contain a notice indicating that it is posted with permission of the copyright holder, the work can be copied and distributed to anyone in the United States without paying any fees or charges. If you are redistributing or providing access to a work with the phrase Project Gutenberg associated with or appearing on the work, you must comply either with the requirements of paragraphs 1.1 through 1.7 or obtain permission for the use of the work and the Project Gutenberg trademark is set forth in paragraphs 1.8 or 1.9. 1.3. If an individual Project Gutenberg electronic work is posted with the permission of the copyright holder, your use and distribution must comply with both paragraphs 1.1 through 1.7 and any additional terms imposed by the copyright holder. Additional terms will be linked to the Project Gutenberg license for all works posted with the permission of the copyright holder found at the beginning of this work. 1.4. Do not unlink or detach or remove the full Project Gutenberg license terms from this work, or any files containing a part of this work or any other work associated with Project Gutenberg. 1.5. Do not copy, display, perform, distribute or redistribute this electronic work, or any part of this electronic work, without prominently displaying the sentence set forth in paragraph 1.1 with active links or immediate access to the full terms of the Project Gutenberg license. 1.6. You may convert to and distribute this work in any binary, compressed, marked up, non-proprietary or proprietary form, including any word processing or hypertext form. However, if you provide access to or distribute copies of a Project Gutenberg work in a format other than plain vanilla ASCII or other format used in the official version posted on the official Project Gutenberg website, www.gutenberg.org, you must, at no additional cost, fee, or expense to the user, provide a copy, a means of exporting a copy, or a means of obtaining a copy upon request, of the work in its original plain vanilla ASCII or other form. Any alternate format must include the full Project Gutenberg license as specified in paragraph 1.1. 1.7. Do not charge a fee for access to, viewing, displaying, performing, copying, or distributing any Project Gutenberg works, unless you comply with paragraph 1.8 or 1.9. 1.8. You may charge a reasonable fee for copies of or providing access to or distributing Project Gutenberg electronic works, provided that you pay a royalty fee of 20% of the gross profits you derive from the use of Project Gutenberg works calculated using the method you already use to calculate your applicable taxes. The fee is owed to the owner of the Project Gutenberg trademark, but he has agreed to donate royalties under this paragraph to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. Royalty payments must be paid within 60 days following each date on which you prepare, or are legally required to prepare, your periodic tax returns. Royalty payments should be clearly marked as such and sent to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation at the address specified in Section 4, Information about donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. You provide a full refund of any money paid by a user who notifies you in writing, or by email, within 30 days of receipt that he does not agree to the terms of the full Project Gutenberg license. You must require such a user to return or destroy all copies of the works possessed in a physical medium and discontinue all use of and all access to other copies of Project Gutenberg works. You provide, in accordance with paragraph 1.f.3, a full refund of any money paid for a work or a replacement copy, if a defect in the electronic work is discovered and reported to you within 90 days of receipt of the work. You comply with all other terms of this agreement for free distribution of Project Gutenberg works. 1.e.9. If you wish to charge a fee or distribute a Project Gutenberg electronic work or group of works on different terms than are set forth in this agreement, you must obtain permission in writing from the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the manager of the Project Gutenberg trademark. Contact the foundation as set forth in section 3 below. 1.f. 1.f.1. Project Gutenberg volunteers and employees expend considerable effort to identify, do copyright research on, transcribe and proofread works not protected by U.S. copyright law in creating the Project Gutenberg collection. Despite these efforts, Project Gutenberg electronic works, and the medium on which they may be stored, may contain defects, such as, but not limited to, incomplete, inaccurate, or corrupt data, transcription errors, a copyright or other intellectual property infringement, a defective or damaged disk or other medium, a computer virus, or computer codes that damage or cannot be read by your equipment. 1.f.2. Limited warranty, disclaimer of damages except for the right of replacement or refund described in paragraph 1.f.3, the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the owner of the Project Gutenberg trademark, and any other party distributing a Project Gutenberg electronic work under this agreement, disclaim all liability to you for damages, costs, and expenses, including legal fees. You agree that you have no remedies for negligence, strict liability, breach of warranty or breach of contract except those provided in paragraph 1.f.3. You agree that the foundation, the trademark owner, and any distributor under this agreement will not be liable to you for actual, direct, indirect, consequential, punitive or incidental damages even if you give notice of the possibility of such damage. 1.f.3. Limited right of replacement or refund if you discover a defect in this electronic work within 90 days of receiving it, you can receive a refund of the money, if any, you paid for it by sending a written explanation to the person you received the work from. If you received the work on a physical medium, you must return the medium with your written explanation. The person or entity that provided you with the defective work may elect to provide a replacement copy in lieu of a refund. If you received the work electronically, the person or entity providing it to you may choose to give you a second opportunity to receive the work electronically in lieu of a refund. If the second copy is also defective, you may demand a refund in writing without further opportunities to fix the problem. 1.f.4. Except for the limited right of replacement or refund set forth in paragraph 1.f.3, this work is provided to you ASIS, with no other warranties of any kind, express or implied, including but not limited to warranties of merchantability or fitness for any purpose. 1.f.5. Some states do not allow disclaimers of certain implied warranties or the exclusion or limitation of certain types of damages. If any disclaimer or limitation set forth in this agreement violates the law of the state applicable to this agreement, the Agreement shall be interpreted to make the maximum disclaimer or limitation permitted by the applicable state law. The invalidity or unenforceability of any provision of this agreement shall not void the remaining provisions. 1.f.6 Indemnity. You agree to indemnify and hold the foundation, the trademark owner, any agent or employee of the foundation, anyone providing copies of Project Gutenberg electronic works in accordance with this agreement, and any volunteers associated with the production, promotion and distribution of Project Gutenberg electronic works, harmless from all liability, costs and expenses, including legal fees, that arise directly or indirectly from any of the following which you do or cause to occur: a. Distribution of this or any Project Gutenberg work, b. Alteration, modification, or additions or deletions to any Project Gutenberg work, and c. Any defect you cause. Section 2. Information about the mission of Project Gutenberg. Project Gutenberg is synonymous with the free distribution of electronic works in formats readable by the widest variety of computers, including obsolete, old, middle-aged and new computers. It exists because of the efforts of hundreds of volunteers and donations from people in all walks of life. Volunteers and financial support to provide volunteers with the assistance they need are critical to reaching Project Gutenberg's goals and ensuring that the Project Gutenberg collection will remain freely available for generations to come. In 2001, the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation was created to provide a secure and permanent future for Project Gutenberg and future generations. To learn more about the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation and how your efforts and donations can help, see Sections 3 and 4 and the Foundation information page at www.gutenberg.org. Section 3. Information about the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation is a non-profit 501(c)(3) educational corporation organized under the laws of the State of Mississippi and granted tax-exempt status by the Internal Revenue Service. The Foundation's EIN or Federal Tax Identification number is 64-6221541. Contributions to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation are tax-deductible to the full extent permitted by U.S. federal laws and your state's laws. The Foundation's business office is located at 41 Watchung Plaza No. 516, Montclair, New Jersey, 07042 USA, +1 862 621 9288. Email contact links and up-to-date contact information can be found at the Foundation's website and official page at www.gutenberg.org/contact. Section 4. Information about donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. Project Gutenberg depends upon and cannot survive without widespread public support and donations to carry out its mission of increasing the number of public domain and licensed works that can be freely distributed in machine-readable form accessible by the widest array of equipment, including outdated equipment. Many small donations, $1 to $5,000, are particularly important to maintaining tax-exempt status with the IRS. The Foundation is committed to complying with the laws regulating charities and charitable donations in all 50 states of the United States. Compliance requirements are not uniform and it takes a considerable effort, much paperwork and many fees to meet and keep up with these requirements. We do not solicit donations in locations where we have not received written confirmation of compliance. To send donations or determine the status of compliance for any particular state, visit www.gutenberg.org/donate. While we cannot and do not solicit contributions from states where we have not met the solicitation requirements, we know of no prohibition Against accepting unsolicited donations from donors in such states who approach us with offers to donate. International donations are gratefully accepted, but we cannot make any statements concerning tax treatment of donations received from outside the United States. U.S. laws alone swamp our small staff. Please check the Project Gutenberg web pages for current donation methods and addresses. Donations are accepted in a number of other ways, including checks, online payments, and credit card donations. 2. Donate. Please visit www.gutenberg.org/donate. Section 5. General information about Project Gutenberg electronic works. Professor Michael S. Hart was the originator of the Project Gutenberg concept of a library of electronic works that could be freely shared with anyone. For 40 years, he produced and distributed Project Gutenberg ebooks with only a loose network of volunteer support. Project Gutenberg ebooks are often created from several printed editions, all of which are confirmed as not protected by copyright in the U.S. unless a copyright notice is included. Thus, we do not necessarily keep ebooks in compliance with any particular paper edition. Most people start at our website, which has the main PG search facility, www.gutenberg.org. This website includes information about Project Gutenberg, including how to make donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, how to help produce our new ebooks, and how to subscribe to our email newsletter to hear about new ebooks.